Our first speaker today for opening remarks is Heidi Browning. Heidi Browning serves as the EVP and Chief Marketing Officer of the National Hockey League. With over 25 years of marketing experience, Browning brings a valuable mix of client, agency, and media owner perspectives to the NHL. Heidi is known as a passionate pioneer in digital, mobile, and social marketing and continues to drive thought leadership and innovation within the industry. Inspired by the intersection of media, technology, and culture, she studies generational trends in attention and brand engagement. Heidi is responsible for executing the league's marketing strategy with a focus on digital, social, and corporate social responsibility. Prior to joining the NHL, Heidi served as SVP, Strategic Solutions at Pandora. Her team was responsible for developing marketing experiences that create value for fans, for bands, and brands. Leveraging Pandora's passionate fans, first-party data, and personalization, Heidi's team launched live music and content experiences pairing Fortune 500 clients with emerging and iconic artists. She was recognized as one of the top women in music by Billboard. As Senior Vice President of Client Solutions for Fox Interactive Media / MySpace, Heidi evangelized the value of social media in the marketing mix and positioned brand communities as a new way to build audience, create engagement, and establish a two-way dialogue between consumers and brands. She led the first in-depth consumer segmentation and ROI study for social media, Never Ending Friendship, a journey into social networking, which quantified the impact of the momentum effect. Browning is a respected thought leader in the industry and is a featured speaker at industry conferences including TEDx Women, Mobile Marketing Association CMO Summit, and the Youth Marketing Summit. Heidi holds a BA from the University of Colorado Boulder in International Relations. She currently resides in both San Francisco and New York. Welcome, Heidi.
We're here to talk about the generations of our future, and it is really a pleasure for me to join you here today. And what makes me qualified, even though I'm not a millennial, qualified to talk to you about these different generations is my career experience, which we just heard the nice introduction there. And I've really been focused on so many different categories: music, entertainment, gaming, and now and social media, how could I forget that? And now with my most recent role as CMO of the NHL. And the common thread, the tie that binds all of these categories is really that passionate millennial fan base and the opportunity and the requirement for us to really understand what motivates, what inspires, and what engages this important audience in order to be effective marketers. So we often get caught up in this whole world of what's new, what's next, what's now, right? We're always seeking what's that next innovation in technology, in media, and social media, and message bots, and AR, and VR, and you name it, there's something new every single day. There's something disrupting categories of business every single day. But what I'm up here to say to you or share with you is my thoughts are, it's not about the what is the next disruptor, it's about the who is the next disruptor. And we learned this firsthand when I was at MySpace in the early days, remember MySpace, everybody? Back in the early days, that was transformational time for us as marketers. That was the first time that consumers actually had a voice, that they had access to technology that would allow them to create and share and distribute their own content, that they could connect with audiences and like-minded people. And it really rattled the marketing world, right? Because at that moment, the social contract was rewritten between brands and consumers. Brands had to understand and be comfortable with consumers having control over their brand assets. And consumers wanted to have their voices be heard. And that was the beginning of the two-way dialogue. We shifted from people talking at you to having a one-to-one conversation. And what that has done is it has rewritten the marketing rules for everyone to this day. But it doesn't end there. Millennial generation has also rewritten the rules of business. This is an example of Google. Has anyone been to the Google offices? These are their study pods or meeting pods, pretty groovy space. But in order to attract the next generation of smart, innovative, aspirational talent, the companies that are seeking them are trying to reshape and reimagine what the workplace looks like. They're rethinking what is design, they're rethinking structure, they're rethinking everything that relates to the culture of the workspace. They're using collaboration tools differently than they used to. Meetings are different. Everything is different in these modern business organizations. And that is because of the influence of the millennials. They're making work an experience. So we're going to hear today and for the next few days a lot of really amazing leaders talk about the rise of the millennial generation. I want to share with you, I'll talk a lot about that as well, but I want to share with you also that I think we need to look ahead, look around the corner, and look to the next generation as well. Generation Z, those are the people, that's you, the people born after 1997 here. And growing up Generation Z is a distinctly different generation than the millennials. Not crazy different, but it's an evolution of how they view the world. And if you think about it, this generation grew up post 9/11. They lived through the Great Recession that we had here, as opposed to millennials who we had, some free spending good times during their young years. They've lived in this fluid family environment, and what that means is gender roles have been morphing, where fathers are staying at home while mothers are going back to work, and there's just a whole different way of managing households. They were also have the first African-American president that we had for 2 terms. This was new and never been experienced before in the United States, and it's part of the fabric of their lives. They've witnessed and seen cyberbullying and seen the tragic consequences as a result of that, and they've witnessed the whole transformation of marriage equality in their short lives. The world around us has changed so rapidly in just their short lives. It's really important to think about what these socioeconomic and political factors are that shape who they are and how they see the world. So we do a comparison and contrast of millennials and Generation Z. It's really important to think about who raised these generations, right? So millennials were raised by baby boomers, and Generation Z has been raised by Generation Xers. And you can see the influence of the parental generations manifesting itself in how each generation views the world. So for millennials, for example, they're more liberal and they're idealistic, just like their parents were. And the Generation Z, on the flip side, is more conservative and realistic. Millennials are service-oriented, and this is going to be a big topic of what you talk about today, that community service. And for Generation Z, they don't see themselves as just service-oriented. They see themselves as the agents of social change. From the millennial generation, we've got diversity is accepted, and it's the norm for the Gen Z. It's not even a thing. It is normal. We look at confidence in the millennial generation, and this has been such a fantastic attribute, one of those polysyllabic words that you mentioned. You can drop polysyllabic in a meeting. That's good. That was awesome. Confident. And then the Generation Z is self-aware, right? They're confident, but they're self-aware. We've got the me generation, and that is really attributed to the rise of the power of social media and this idea that you have a voice and you can change the world, to the we generation, which is more about the collective, the global unification of all of your voices. And then last but not least, millennials grew up with technology. They weren't born with it, so they're tech savvy, but the Generation Z grew up with technology at their fingertips from the time they came out of the womb, so they're tech reliant. And what's interesting about this generation, the Generation Z, is they believe that they can and will change the world in their pajamas. They have this inner confidence. And it's really powerful. And they do it because they're globally connected. They've got millions of fans. They've been technically connected with people all of their lives. And in fact, there are so many Gen Zs out there that are starting businesses that are being crowdfunded that they have a new term for them called ZEOs. And I just gave a presentation about a month ago at the Youth Marketing Summit in Brooklyn, and we had a panel of 6 Generation Zers. They were 17, 18 years old. Every single one of them had a legitimate company that was making money, and some of them had 2, and one of them had 3. They're 17 and 18 years old. Think about that. They not only believe they can change the world, they actually put their thoughts and their words into action. So the other important aspect of this generation is that technology aspect. Again, they were born with digital tools in their hands. They were pinching and swiping and using digital screens and technology since the day they came out of the womb. And not only that, but every question they've ever had in the universe has been answered by the almighty Google, right? They never have a question that doesn't get answered, or they can't find something out or get more curious about learning more about, because they have everything at their fingertips through the digital universe. And with what that does is it really empowers this generation. It makes them truly believe that they can think that anything and everything is possible. This is, life has turned into on-demand. We talked about its access versus ownership is the big trend here. And this is another massive shift in generations, where Generation Z, as well as millennials, expect everything in life to be on demand, to be real-time, to be personalized, to be relevant. And this is where companies have to really think about, how do you remix and remake your business so that you can actually meet the needs and demands of this generation? And then this is a really interesting point too, which is about the ability, the brains and their ability to rewire and filter content. The average attention span of an adult is 8 seconds, if you can believe that, 8 seconds. And the average attention span of Gen Z is 4 seconds. And their brains are actually rewiring so that they can process the feed of more information and understand it, comprehend it, and move on. And it's because they're growing up multitasking. They've moved from 3 screens to 5 screens, and they are the master multitaskers of information. And if you think about it, our most precious resource here in the business world is consumer attention. And so this idea of how do you as a marketer, how do you as a business make yourself relevant and earn the attention of these really important generations, of the millennial generation and Generation Z. And this is an anthem, and I love this anthem. It came from TEDx Teen. Did anyone attend that event? It was really remarkable. I'm just going to read it out loud because it's going to get us in the spirit for the rest of the talk. So it's we, the generation. We are the first idea, the first innovation, the first collaboration, the first of its kind. You never saw us coming until now. We're navigators, we're creators. Our ideas and actions generate movements. We're not potential, we already discovered your future. We are more than a label, we are this generation. We are simply uncharted, original, and are positively lighting the world on fire. We are here, we are now, and we have been untapped. And this is a really, really exciting anthem for marketers and business leaders around, because there's so much positivity and optimism and action that happens within this generation. So as we think about this generation and think about how we grow the sport of hockey, we think about how do we really tap into the global growth of the sport. And if you look throughout the world, there are really 2 areas that are universal languages. One is music, and the other is sports. And sports and music have this uncanny ability to be able to transcend geographies, genders, and generations, and create these connections through a common love and passionate bond and passion for the sport. And I'm really proud to say that the NHL, how many people are familiar with the National Hockey League? Good? All right, good. And I hope the rest of you are after this conversation today. The NHL this year is going to celebrate their 100-year anniversary. There's only one other major league sport that has experienced 100 years in existence, and that is Major League Baseball. And we are really proud to have been delivering this, the most exciting sport, to people around the globe. And what I'm going to do right now is show you a quick video that'll bring you back to that, how the 100 years have evolved. Don't worry, there's no sound right now. It'll come on.
They say it's a matter of time, 1,000 days in the sun won't shine.
So an incredible journey over the last 100 years. I'm always amazed at the uniforms they were wearing back then. It was like a sweater, and now they have all this big equipment that they use to protect themselves. So as we think about ourselves as a brand, we think about how do we think about the next 100 years of the NHL? How do we prepare ourselves for the next 100 years? And how do we ensure that we are tapping into what motivates, inspires, and engages our future fans? And so one of the areas that we're really focused on is this notion of being young. At the NHL, we definitely are young in the sense that our players are, 91% of our players are millennials right now. And in fact, we have the youngest captain in NHL history who's leading a team, and he is Generation Z. And what's exciting about having this influx of all these young players is that when they were kids and they were learning how to skate and how to play the game, they were experiencing it right at a point when there was a rule change within the NHL. About 10 years ago, there was a rule change that was designed to make the sport more exciting and entertaining and have more goals and everything. And this generation of kids, who are now the NHL players, grew up in this generation of the new rules. And as a result, the whole game is transforming, and it's more about your speed and your skills than it is about the fighting and sort of the physicality of the sport as it used to be. And so this is the day, from this day forward, that we're going to continue to see the sport evolve as more and more of these players start to mature in their roles in the sport. At NHL, we're global. We talked a lot about the importance of global connectedness, and we're really proud to be one of the few sports that has one of the most global teams. In North America, we are the most global major league sport out there. And this little puck, which is also a pie, shows you the composition of NHL teams here in North America. Approximately half are Canadian. This is Canadians. That's where hockey was invented. And then the other half are comprised of US and European players. And it's really exciting. We just had the World Cup of Hockey, where we had 14 countries come to participate up in Canada to just demonstrate the love and the passion for the sport and bring all of these countries, generations, and geographies together. At NHL, we are everywhere. We talked about that notion of life on demand and the expectation that content and experiences are going to be wherever you want, however you want, whenever you want. Well, at the NHL, we had to think about that, right? Because we have got the live sport, which there's nothing like the live sport in person. Hockey's a game you feel, and you should all go to live games if you can. But we also have it on television, but even that isn't enough. We have worked hard over the last year and are continuing to innovate and develop to make sure that we're on every platform available where people want to experience and engage with the sport. So we've got NHL.tv, we're on Apple TV, we're on Xbox and PlayStation. We're integrated into all of these entertainment spaces and places so that people can experience the hockey game. And in fact, our latest is, which hasn't happened yet, so you're the first to see this, that we are going to be live streaming games on Twitter. And the NFL started this with an experiment, and we are going to also participate in that. But this is that ability to watch a game in real time and be able to engage with it through Twitter. And instead of having two screens, we're actually bringing it back to one screen. Most people are watching with two screens. Now we're bringing it back to one screen and having it all in one place. But we're really excited about this because it's just another new way to engage with the game and then share your thoughts around it. Innovation is really key. We read that anthem about we are first, we are here, we're changing the world. Innovation is a really important thread that you need to think about, whether you're marketing or whether you're building a business or attracting the next generation workforce. And if you want to go with me into sort of an imagine mode here, VR is not new. It's still an entrant into the marketing space, but there's a future ahead of us in VR. So live sports are still the most tuned in. It's like the one thing on television that people actually gather and tune in and have appointment viewing. And hockey in particular is a social sport. So if you can't get to the live game, the hockey fans fans tend to have viewing parties and host friends, etc., either at bars or in their homes. Now imagine going to that viewing party at a bar and having that collective social experience, but having your own VR experience, where you might be attached to a particular player or experiencing it from a particular angle. You're having your individual experience in this collective future. This is the way that we think the future of sports could go, in addition to being live sports and telecast on TV. Another area that's gaining a lot of momentum is around esports. Does anyone play esports in here? Okay, this is an arena, like normally you go see Lady Gaga here. This is an arena filled with people watching gamers game against each other. It's like a gaming competition, and it's global, and it's growing. There are 100 million people that are doing this around the world, and they're selling tickets as if it was a live sport event, but it's not live sports. It's gamers playing sports, or gamers playing all kinds of strategy games, etc. This is the future, right? This is the future of growing our franchise. It's not just about the game itself. It's about how do you extend the game to the way people want to experience it, and people want to experience it through video games. The last area of innovation I want to touch on here is called puck tracking. So what you see here is a puck that's been embedded with a chip, and then another chip that was embedded into the uniforms of our players. And we tested this out at the World Cup of Hockey. Hockey is a really, really fast sport. It's really hard to, keep your eye on the puck all the time and kind of know, and a bunch of guys are crowded around it, so it's hard to see what's going on. But with this puck tracking, it enables us to step back and be able to see so much and quantify so many statistics around each and every one of the players. What's their time on ice? What's their time with puck? How fast are they going? The puck can go up to 100 miles an hour, if you can believe it. And this is our ability to really track all of that information. And as we all love data and information, it helps us and our fan base feel closer and more informed about the players and the game that they love. So at NHL, we are also engaged, and engagement is really key. We talked about it in the beginning about that importance, that shift in marketing to having a one-on-one dialogue between brands and consumers. And it's really about having that one-on-one relationship between brands and consumers. And I spent a lot of time doing this in the music business because people wanted to and expected that they would have a one-on-one relationship with artists. And the same would seem to be true in the sports world, right? There's so much connectivity, and so many sports and athletes have been, making their themselves available and accessible via social media. It's really an important part of building and engaging that fan base. But it's interesting here at the NHL because the culture of hockey, the ethos of hockey, is not about the individual, it's about the team. It always has been about the team. And this is an area where we're working really hard to get the culture comfortable with the shifting dynamics of the marketing world out there. And we have some players, some of the younger players, who really embrace social media and really understand that it's possible to be out there promoting yourself as an individual, but also be an important part of the team. And here we have PK Subban. He played in Canada, was just traded, now he plays for Nashville, but he's got 1.58 million fans across Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And he is highly engaged, and it's not just about the sport, it's about culture, it's about fashion, it's about entertainment, and he's always giving back and remaining connected and close to his community, which is why he's built such a big fan base. And for us, as we grow our sport and shift our sport, we need to continue to find more PK Subbans out there who will create those connections with their fans. Now I'm going to share with you some of our top performing social posts, because again, it's about how do you create engagement. Engagement isn't just about the best goal or the best save that was out there. Engagement is really about all of those other emotional aspects of the game that happen. This happened on Veterans Day, and it was the Ducks, and the Anaheim Ducks, and they brought in a bomb-sniffing dog who dropped the puck, and then the players had their face-off with this little adorable dog dropping the puck. 43 million people saw this post. 43 million people. Think about that. That's huge. The next one I want to share with you is quite possibly the most adorable Instagram post ever. This one was called the penalty box selfie. And what's remarkable about this isn't necessarily the number of people who saw it, because it got 30,000 one night. But we had a real-time correspondent. We staff all of our games with real-time social media correspondents who are out there trying to catch what action's going on and tell our story and really connect beyond the core fan base, but to broaden it. And our real-time correspondent saw this selfie go up. She grabbed it, she tracked down the mom, and found out the story behind this. And the mom actually had never been to a hockey game before. She got tickets from a friend, brought her daughter, put her daughter next door to take us, so she could have a selfie. And then you got the two players who were in the penalty box, like taking part in the selfie. But this went viral. It was crazy, and it was fun. But it was that idea of the NHL really had somebody who was paying attention to what was happening right there in the moment and created an even bigger story out of that one moment. And this one is another beautiful one. This is and it's a video, and you should go check it out on YouTube if you get a chance. This was a player threw a puck, tossed a puck over the glass to this little boy, and he hugged it and loved it. It's the most heartwarming thing that you've ever seen. It was the happiest moment of his life, but this is a moment he'll never forget. And as we think about how do we really have authentic personal connections between athletes and fans, this is one of those moments that will live in this kid's life forever, as memories forever. And then last but not least, we've always been trying to merge some of those cultural influences together. So how do you bring music and tie it into sports? It's been something that we've been doing in all the major leagues for quite some time now. So here is another one of our very top posts. 31 million people saw this. This was Metallica doing the best rendition of Star Spangled Banner at the Stanley Cup last summer. So last but not least, it is a requirement to be socially responsible. As a brand today, and if you want to earn the respect, the attention, the share of wallet, the share of love from any consumer out there, you have to demonstrate that you care about people, the planet, the environment, you name it. You have to pick what you're going to do to give back to our universe. And we've embraced this. We've been embracing it for years and years and years, and it's really with great pride that I get to join the NHL and see how much terrific work we've really done over time. But as you think about the businesses of the future, every business needs to make social responsibility a part of their corporate strategy. There are numerous studies out there that correlate corporate social responsibility with the success of an organization. And I hope all of you smart people in this room continue to study that, because I do believe there is a huge correlation there. So when we look at some of the great stuff that the NHL has been working on, this month happens to be National Cancer Awareness Month, and for us, it's called Hockey Fights Cancer. And we don't pick just one cancer, so that's why we're not pink. We are lavender, because we support any and all kinds and forms of cancer that are out there. And every single one of our clubs participates, and every single one of our players participates in it. It's a very, very important part of our organization. We dress the players in jerseys. We make the blue line lavender. We tape up sticks. And most importantly, we raise a lot of money. And that money goes out to the local communities where there are cancer patients who need treatment, or where they're funding research to help kind of fight a particular cancer. But this is really, really important, again, for how do we extend and expand our fan base? It's by being an intricate part of the community, and how we're doing that is by giving back and really focusing on helping those who need it the most. In addition to Hockey Fights Cancer, we have a long-standing record of sustainability. We're the first major league sport to actually publish a sustainability report, which you can find online, and we are committed to balancing out the carbon footprint. And we are the 25th largest user of green power in the United States to power our arenas, and we're involved in a long water restoration project where we're putting water back into the rivers and the dams. So NHL Green is really important to us. We're going to continue to be out there advocating for environmental causes across the board. The other thing that we are really passionate about at the NHL is really around diversity and inclusion. And hockey can be an expensive sport. I'm not going to lie. It can be expensive. You got equipment, you got ice time, you got to travel. It's, it's not for everyone. And what we've done as an organization is recognize that we need to help more people, more parts of the world learn to play hockey. So we started these programs where we set up rinks in maybe disadvantaged areas or places where people didn't have access to money or rinks or ice. And we brought in equipment, we brought in talent to help train people on how to play hockey, teach them how to play hockey, and then we keep the program growing. We've done this in 30 different markets in the United States. And this is so key in terms of starting young and teaching people of all backgrounds about how to play hockey and hopefully get them to love the sport so that they can grow up and eventually be in semi-pro or professional sports. But we don't just focus on the physical part of the game. We also have a program that's called Future Goals. And this is really exciting because we take the principles of hockey and we teach people math and science. There's a whole curriculum about this where you learn to do geometry, you learn to understand like speed ratios, you learn a lot of different science and math techniques by studying the game of hockey. And this has been really a popular program because it's getting kids inspired not only about the sport, but about math and science. And this is so important as we grow our young people. So we have a little video to show you at the very, before we go to the now what, we have a little video that we want to show you how the NHL brought all of these aspects together, how we bring our young players, how we bring our global opportunities, how we bring engagement, and how we bring the social corporate responsibility aspects to life through the NHL. Awesome. So now what do we do, right? So what I want to leave you with today is just some words of wisdom as you think about your next steps in your career. If there are business leaders here, how do you think about building the future and building bridges within across generations to millennials and then ultimately with Gen Z? And the first is to really listen. Again, we learned this lesson at the beginning of social media where it is imperative that we listen to the generation and we listen well because we can teach each other things. And I think that's one of the greatest impacts I think the millennial generation has had on business today is it's really shaken up and rattled a lot of traditional companies and really forced them to think about maybe we don't know everything. Maybe we don't have to do everything the way we've always done it. And millennial generation is the one who's really challenging that notion and making change. The next is that notion of engagement. And again, this is really about capturing attention, capturing the hearts and minds of the generations ahead of us has to be about having personal connections. And they can't be connections for the sake of having connections. It has to be authentic. It has to be real. It has to create value. You have to earn people's attention. You cannot just expect it any longer. And brands are starting to figure it out, but they haven't quite cracked the code yet. And that's where I believe the millennial generation is going to be there to help them, to help businesses understand how to create a communication and connection strategy that will help endear them to consumers forever. Innovation, we talked about that. Innovation is so key and so core. If you're a business and you're not innovating, well, don't worry. The millennials and Gen Z, they're going to innovate on your behalf. And guess what? They might start a company that competes with you on your behalf. So go back, listen, engage, and help them shape your future of your business. Think about how you're constantly, continually innovating. Again, not for the sake of innovating, but to meet an unmet need that your consumers or your audience has. To innovate and iterate on what your existing product is so that you can be the best that you can be. The next one is experience, and we've all heard the stat that 67% of millennials prefer experiences over things, and that's the idea of access over ownership. It's a thing. It's an important thing. We're seeing millennials transform the workplace into an experience. So think about your product, your business, your service, and make it an experience. You think about coffee, right? Coffee at Starbucks is an experience. It didn't used to be. You used to just get coffee at a Dunkin' Donuts. That wasn't an experience. Starbucks transformed it into an experience. So there are all kinds of opportunities for you to look with fresh eyes at industries and think about how can I transform this from a simple transaction to a true and meaningful experience. And then the last is empower. Again, be free with your brand. Be free with your business. Obviously, this is a scary proposition for a number of different big corporations. But if you listen and you and really understand what the ideas are coming from Millennial and Generation Z, you're going to and you learn how to engage them and innovate on that. Give them the keys to the castle, right? Allow them, empower them to make decisions on your business's behalf. Because I guarantee you, they're not going to do it lightly, right? These generations take their jobs and their points of view and their ideas very, very seriously, and they want to see success for you and for your business. So I encourage every marketing leader that I ever meet to think about this notion of empowerment of your employer, of your employees, or your empowerment of your consumers, if you really want to have an enduring brand for the next 100 years. And with that, I'm done and would like to thank you very much for your time and attention and mostly for your smiles. Come on, everybody, let's smile. There we go. All right. Oh, are we good? Are we good on time, Paul? Are we good? Yeah? Do we have questions? Anyone have a question? Burning question? Come on. There's one. Yay. Can you shout?
Is that any better?
Yes, fabulous.
So just to repeat, thank you again for taking the time to be here and for the team for setting this entire conference up. I think you mentioned that if a business is to really succeed, it needs to both know the millennials and Generation Z. And when you're planning ahead for the next 100 years, which has been bit of a theme of your presentation. How do we almost anticipate what the next generation, generation Z.I will be like? So what are your opinions on that?
That's a great question. And right now, quite frankly, we're just learning about Generation Z. And just like the millennial generation, the generation spans such a wide range that you could even segment millennials into older and younger millennials, and there's subtle differences between the two segments. And I expect that to happen with Generation Z and those beyond. The key is to be in touch with those audiences, to constantly be researching, studying, monitoring, getting feedback, focus groups, to be able to understand how and what is happening in their minds for the motivations and the inspirations. So just keep studying. That's what I do. One more question? Yeah. And then it's lunchtime, guys. Woo! It's exciting. Anyone else? Yes? I think all these changes in marketing have completely upended the traditional CMO role, if you will, right? The average tenure of a CMO today is 3 years. That's not very long. CMOs used to be there for 20 years, 15 years, and now it's 3 years. And what's happening is the influx of the digital transformation that's happening, the understanding of how to create relationships in non-traditional ways through experiences, through social media, through content, through discovery, through personalization, has really been a challenge for many, many CMOs in this transformation. Then you layer on that the sophistication of the ad technology stack that's happening and the power of data and data-driven marketing. You really have to find kind of a different talent set or skill set for the new CMO. And what a lot of companies are doing is they might bring a new CMO who's got that digital mindset in, and they might be a chief digital officer. Forget the titles. It's more important about what is the skill set that you're bringing into your marketing group so that you can modernize your marketing for the future. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot more transformation happen. All right. Well, thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful conference. Enjoyed it. Thank you.